For those of you who follow me, you know that one of the early amps I used to own was the Bel Canto Class D 1000S monoblocks. I love the fact that they're like the equivalent of a nuclear power plant in the audio world because they can output 1000 watts in 4 ohms and it can drive any speakers I owned. I remember when I paired it with the Pioneer S3 EX speakers. Man, it sounded even better than with the past lab Class A 30W X30.5. At the time, my friend lent it to me and we did an A/B test. Unless you have tried a lot of mix and match, you might think Class A is the best. But my experience tells me, it depends on the synergy. At the time, I liked the Bel Canto enough that I sold my Class AB 300W Bryston 4B SST amp. What I did not know was that the $5,000 MSRP Bel Canto amp I had was part of the entry line. Turns out Bel Canto had a high-end line called the Bel Canto Black. And the first time I saw a Bel Canto Black was in a store. The store name was American Sound of Canada. Now I have made a video on that store already, and for those of you who have seen that video, you know the system sold in that store is the price of a house. So when I first saw the Bel Canto Black in that store, I was like, huh? How much is the Bel Canto Black? Like that series. Their top of the line retails for 70,000 Canadian dollars. I was like, what? Not only was I shocked to see Bel Canto sold at the time in that store, I was surprised that my friend who was with me that day told me he has auditioned the Bel Canto Black before and he said it sounded pretty good. That friend currently owns a system that is about $300,000. And for him to tell me that the Bel Canto Black system sounded pretty good means a lot because he has heard many high-end $300,000 plus systems. Now, no way in my dreams can I even ever afford a system like that. But thanks to all of you, I was able to build a YouTube channel with a decent number of subscribers. And because of that, I was able to get this Bel Canto Black EX integrated amp in for review. I know this amp is only affordable to some, but I was curious what the Bel Canto Black series can do. Just like I'm curious from time to time, I don't know, what the latest Toyota sports car can do, despite me not being able to afford it. Also, one of the goals of my channel is to discover hidden gems out there regardless of price. From what I read, some of the technology from their more expensive line, Bel Canto's more expensive line, got trickled down to this integrated amp. So today's video would not be a detailed review video, but rather I just wanted to share with you my experience with this 20,000 Canadian dollars integrated amp. A big thanks to Everest Audio for lending me this unit. No, I'm not getting paid, nor am I keeping anything to make this video. In fact, this video will cost me money to make because I had to travel around to make this video. Not to mention, after making this video, I will have to spend 2 hours driving just to drop it back off. So, I'm making this video purely for fun and to raise awareness of the Bel Canto brand because I am a big fan of Bel Canto. The Bel Canto Black integrated amp is an all-in-one solution. It comes with a DAC that has USB and network streaming capabilities. It supports MQA, DSD, and can be used with Roon. Now I'll spare you all the technical details and will say there are a lot of interesting things about the design. For example, the differential analog output from the DAC is in pure Class A. Now from my understanding, the unit comes with a custom designed DAC as well as a modified Encore power amp. The unit outputs 250 watts into 8 ohms and 500 watts into 4 ohms. It's too bad I did not get a chance to try the phono stage because most of my time was spent testing it with different speakers. In short, the unit is great for someone who wants high-end performance, who wants a unit with high wife approval factor, and who likes things tidy and neat, right? No spaghetti, no cables, just one unit. So how does the unit sound? Well, at this price, what do you think? Interestingly, it does not sound like a typical Class D amp. I find it quite analog sounding. Analog sounding as defined as a lack of glare in the upper mid-range. And this one has no glare at all. Sometimes Class D can be a bit dry, so that's why I like pairing Class D with tubes. But in this case, it's amazing they solved that problem without needing to use tubes. You get plenty of detail from it. My friend Mr. Jazz told me in his system with this Bel Canto, he heard things that he has never heard before. For those who don't follow me, my audio buddy Mr. Jazz has gone through many high-end systems, well, usually in the $30,000 area range. And that's why it is interesting to hear from him telling me that some of the tracks that he has listened to for many years, he starts noticing things that he doesn't usually hear. Another interesting thing I noticed is that despite being detailed, it is not aggressive. A positive or a negative, depending on who you speak to. You know, some of my setup pushes the detail to the max. What I'm trying to say, when I listen to certain songs, okay, in those systems, there will be a few seconds where it crosses the line and becomes a bit uncomfortable. You have peaks and valleys in each song, right? Sometimes that brightness can tiptoe into the uncomfortable, painful zone because it's either too bright or sharp. Now, I'm talking specifically about speakers, systems that are very detailed. Now, I tolerate it because it's just for a few seconds. With this Bel Canto, I notice with those tracks I'm familiar with, when I reach that part of the song that pushes the sharpness to the max, you know what? I notice with this Bel Canto, it never crosses the line where it becomes painful. So that's why it's impressive. Detail and yet never cross the line being painful. Now the mid-range is not recessed like some of the Class D amps I've tried. There's a bit of softness that reminds me of my 300B2 amps. This I did not expect from a Class D amp. The bass is stronger than my purified Class D amp, which I've recently reviewed, and surprisingly, bass is a bit round. Very nuanced, and the Soundstage, man, is crazy big. Overall, the presentation is neutral, where you don't have an exaggerated top end and bass. Talking about neutral presentation, this reminds me of a conversation I had with my audio buddy, Mr. Cantor. One thing you notice is that as we move up in price, the gear we tested tend to sound more and more neutral, less and less exaggerated. You see, Mr. Cantor said, although this Bel Canto Black sounded very good with the Focal Sopra 2 speakers he owned, he wished it was a bit more dynamic. Mr. Quad also agrees where he wished there was a bit more attack. Now, Mr. Cantor likes a bit of exaggeration where he can feel his gut get punched, right? The thing is, however, as my other audio buddy, Mr. Vintage, pointed out, is that the problem with that is that it does not sound real. Mr. Vintage, who used to play in a band, told us, you know, those super dynamic systems you guys love, that is not how it sounds like in real life. Interestingly, I used to be like Mr. Cantor, where I love exaggeration, but I think my taste has changed. And what I noticed with this Bel Canto, that lack of over-the-top dynamics does make the listening experience more pleasant, which I'll come back later. Before I move on to what I like about this amp, I will say Mr. Quad, or another audio buddy of mine, found that this Bel Canto did not match well with his Quad 2905 electrostatic speakers. Now, the Quad 2905, we do find it a bit picky when it comes to amp matching. Now, sadly, due to COVID, he was not able to come over to my place to listen because, with the Quad 2905, it did not match well. All right, so let's move on to the positive. Now, when we talk about gear at this level, usually it does everything well. There are, however, two things I really like with this amp. Soundstage, and it has a very pleasant tone with warmth. Now, as I mentioned, this is a pretty neutral sounding amp. Great for those who like that kind of presentation, but for those who follow me, I personally prefer a bit of color and warmth in my system. I have to admit, in the beginning I was like, okay, it's neutral and I can appreciate it, but I wish it was warmer. Guess what? This unit has this tilt setting and you can use it to change the sound, and I just set the tilt to +1 or was it +2, and oh my gosh, man, totally my kind of sound. There's a certain softness, sweetness, and it has a euphonic presentation, which reminds me of some of my tube amps. The tone is really pleasant. For me, I find some systems are really impressive only when I sit in the sweet spot. Now, those systems usually create a very convincing soundstage as long as you sit in the sweet spot. Now, there are other systems that catches my attention as soon as I step in the room. I don't even need to sit in the sweet spot. The Bel Canto in my system sounds so pleasant that it catches my attention as soon as I enter the room. I can be anywhere in the room and it will still sound really enjoyable. So the lack of, aggressiveness has its strength as opposed to the super dynamic system, which you get really excited. I'm not kidding, man. Mr. Canto, who loves super dynamic system, tells me sometime when he finishes listening to a song, he's almost sweating. Now, because the Bel Canto has such a pleasant sound, I find myself listening past midnight a lot of times. Now, which is bad because these days I have to wake up really early because of my new job. Now, on top of the pleasant sound, I like the fact that it can be tuned to have warmth. I have these Exempler single driver full range speakers. In my last video, remember that SMSL Class A A1 power amp video? I mentioned these speakers, these Exempler speakers, are not easy to match. Now, one of the issues with these speakers is that they are quite linear and can sound a bit lean. Now, they have a sensitivity of 96 dB, so I have only been pairing them with tube amps. I keep looking for tube amps that are on the warm side to complement them. They do sound good with some tube amps, but not all. One night, I remember, I finished listening to this Reisong A50 300B tube amp. And I was using it with these Exempler speakers. Sounded okay. And then I decided to change to the Bel Canto with my Silverline Sonata speakers. For fun, given I had the Exempler speakers out, I decided to test it with the Bel Canto before swapping in my Silverline speakers. Never have I ever once thought these Exempler speakers would sound good with a Class D amp. But since I had it out, so I'll give it a try. To my surprise, the warmth of the Bel Canto pairs exceptionally well with my Exempler speakers. I would say out of all my amps, the Exempler speaker sounded the best with the Bel Canto because of the warmth. That is why I always say, you never know until you plug it in. That's the thing with synergy. And part of the reason why I don't like giving advice when people ask me if something matches well with something else, because unless I heard it, I don't know if it will be a good match or not. Excuse me. The other thing I found really impressive with this unit is the soundstage. I'm lucky and unlucky to have listened to many systems in my life. I'm lucky because I get to experience many amazing systems. I'm unlucky because I get to listen to many systems that are way better than mine, and my frame of reference is really high. If, for example, okay, if you ever listen to Mr. Quad's system, with his electrostatic speakers, the Quad 2905, he has what you would call a cathedral soundstage. No, I had those exact same speakers at my place with the exact same electronics, and sadly, in my room, I don't get that cathedral soundstage. And so that's why I always say the performance of your system really depends on your room. Now, the Bel Canto can generate an impressive soundstage. Now, although still not like cathedral soundstage in my room because of my room, right? I got, however, a really big soundstage, which I don't usually get with my other systems. I would say probably the top 3 best soundstage I've ever gotten at my place. I remember the first time I ever tried the Bel Canto Black was with my Focal 1008BE speakers. And I had to say, man, damn, I don't remember ever hearing these Focal speakers creating such a big soundstage. So, amazing soundstage. So let's wrap it up. I know the question of value will come up whenever we talk about high-end audio. In fact, it was a topic among me and my audio buddies when we were discussing about this Bel Canto Black, right? And, you know, if you think about it, is it 20 times better than this $1,000 SMSL A2 Class D all-in-one integrated amp I have here? Heck, the SMSL might even measure better than the Bel Canto Black. And for some of you, that alone is enough to consider the SMSL better. Whatever your opinion on high-end audio is, okay guys, I ask that you be respectful and intelligent in your comments. I know whatever I say will not justify the price tag to some of you, okay? But I'll give you something to think about though. So let's say hypothetically, this $1,000 SMSL amp is 90% of the Bel Canto. You might not think a 10% difference is a big deal, but for some people, that 10% difference is the difference between their ability to suspend their disbelief or not, meaning the ability to believe whether the singer is in the room or not. It might be in that 10%. Now, I'm not saying you can't have that illusion with an entry-level system. You absolutely can. But the degree of realism might be different because of that 10%. I say this because I've heard hundreds of systems from budget to ultra high-end. And I find there's a place for all of this, budget or high-end. High-end can do some things, entry-level cannot. But entry-level gear performance is mind-boggling. I do wish many of you can hear both, so you can appreciate both. For me, as I told Mr. Quad, I actually prefer the Bel Canto over my own reference amp, which is the Macintosh MAC6700. Now, this Bel Canto is obviously for people with deeper pockets, and the point of my YouTube channel is to bring you along with me on my audio journey. For those of you who are shopping in this price bracket, what I hope to achieve in this video is just to give you more options. We as consumers win when there are more competition and options. Now, please, please, please don't buy it blind, okay? You can listen to it in a store. I have to say this because I get emails from time to time, people telling me they bought stuff blind because of my video. And some stuff are like over $10,000. So please guys, go listen before buying. And I'll put in the description some info. I don't know if you're looking for a place to listen in Canada. All right, guys? So I'll see you next time.